Morong's wife had long since passed away. In their home, it was just him and his youngest child. The house was once full of beautiful memories, but as time went on, those memories faded until it was just the two of them left. His older children chose to live separately after starting their own families. They rarely visited, but Morong didn't mind. According to Morong, one of the hardest parts of life is when your loved ones, who have been with you for decades, leave you. There are times when you might forget it, but when you look at the foundation of your home, the memories of the past come flooding back. It's a painful stab in the heart that makes you feel like you'd rather die. Tied to his past, did everything he could to bring back those memories. When his children couldn't visit, he took it upon himself to visit them in their towns. Even though Morong was old, he still wanted to be a guide for his children. Even though they were no longer under his care, he still wanted to give them the life he dreamed of for them. That was Morong's motivation, and he never got tired of helping. Over the years of visiting his children's homes, he became known in neighboring villages. People he talked to thought he was a kind man with principles, but little did they know, he had a big secret. That no one knows, Morong possessed knowledge of the left-hand path. His expertise was witchcraft, and he had a unique way of practicing it. He rarely used it, so no one in their area suspected him. Morong avoided practicing witchcraft as much as possible because he knew the consequences if he ever did it. There was only one destination for his victims, only death. Let's pause the story for a moment. Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the bell icon to get updates on our future videos. Thank you. Let's continue the story. As days and months passed, their family remained relatively happy. Twice a week, they traveled to the places where his children lived. Morong preferred to spend time there when they had nothing else to do. This way, he could know their true situation. Morong was grateful because, even though his children had their own families, nothing had changed. He thought their happy family life would continue. But one day, his eldest suddenly visited their home. He had no idea why his eldest was there, so he patiently waited until he entered their house. When they faced each other, his eldest was trembling with fear while recounting the events. "Dad, please come with me. Something bad happened to my sibling." "We need you there," his eldest said. Hearing this, Morong felt something strange because he knew that his children wouldn't come to him unless it was serious. In their conversation, Morong's eldest mentioned the trouble his eldest child was involved in. There had been a misunderstanding with a coworker, which escalated into a conflict that led to the death of his second grandchild. The man had targeted his grandchild because he couldn't harm Morong's child directly. This event caused a severe blow to his child's family, nearly driving them to the brink of insanity. Fortunately, other siblings intervened, calming the situation, though Morong's child was in a better state. The siblings were still on edge, especially with the fresh wounds of the incident. After their conversation, his eldest advised him to wait. When Morong returned to his place, his child was puzzled by the nails and hammer he was carefully placing in a black cloth bag. "Dad, what are you going to do with that? You won't need that there. Just leave it," his child said. After their talk, his child reluctantly followed. As they traveled, they kept discussing the events. Until that moment, Morong couldn't believe what had happened to his grandchild. He felt extreme anger and hatred because of what the perpetrator had done. What enraged him the most was that his grandchild was used and then discarded like trash in the grasslands. After a few hours, when they reached the town, the first thing he saw were the tents providing shade for the gamblers. At the entrance of his child's house, his deceased grandchild lay. Upon seeing the situation at the house, Morong felt a deep sorrow. It was one of his greatest fears, and he immediately shared in his child's grief. Inside the house, he found his child in a deep state of despair, almost unrecognizable. Besides the sunken eyes, he also noticed his child's emaciation, Many people were trying to talk to his child, but they received no response. All his child wanted was to be alone to think of a way to survive. When his child saw him, the expression changed. Instead of being happy at his arrival, his child's grief intensified, and he quickly ran towards him, hugging his father. His child tearfully revealed that the person who killed his grandchild had escaped. Morong listened quietly, and when he noticed people leaving, he began talking to his child. According to Morong, it didn't matter if the person escaped. As long as he knew the person's appearance and name, he could find him anywhere in the world. Morong confessed to his child that, because of the incident, it was likely he would reveal his true self. Hearing this, his child quickly provided a sketch of the man. He also shared the man's name and age, as requested by his father. As their conversation continued, Morong secretly noted all the details in his black book. When he had gathered all the information, he started asking about the man's family in their area. His child shared information about the man's close relatives, which made Morong smile as he replied, "The demon who killed my grandchild has a swang blood. That's why he's so confident. He knows he has backup when he's in trouble. But what does he think? That they can stop me? Let's see." After saying those words, his child couldn't help but ask questions. Morong chose to remain silent, contemplating his plans. This was his usual approach to avoid sabotaging his intentions. Morong believed in the power of words. When you speak ill of others or contradict their desires, there's a chance it will come true. It's like poison, tainting your plans and aspirations. Because of this belief, until he accomplished his goals, he told no one about his plans. That's what Morong did to reach that point in his life. Eventually, his child noticed his lack of interest in answering questions and chose to remain silent. Before removing his hands from his father's body, his child urged him to do everything to avenge his grandchild's death. Hearing this, Morong simply nodded, signaling his agreement. Fueled by intense anger, Morong discreetly scouted the surrounding areas during the wake, searching for signs that could lead him to the man. 3 days passed. Realizing that his search wouldn't be easy, he decided to target the man's weak relatives first. Just like the man had done to his grandchild, Morong aimed for the youngest nephew. When he learned everything about the child, he didn't hesitate to abduct him. One night, while observing the house of the man's relative, Morong saw the man's young son step outside. As the boy was about to open the gate, Morong quickly moved to intercept him, anticipating that he would head to the village. After waiting for a few minutes, he spotted the boy approaching. Just as the boy was about to pass the tree Morong was hiding behind, he stopped him by mentioning his uncle. After saying this, Morong slowly emerged from the darkness surrounding the tree. Seeing Morong, the boy froze in fear. When they faced each other, Morong showed his anger by shedding tears. The boy was about to scream when Morong struck him with the hammer he was carrying. The hammer lodged in the boy's skull, causing him to lose consciousness quickly. Having carried out his plan, Morong took the boy's body to the mountains near his child's home. There, he performed a ritual using the hammer and 6 black nails, each almost 2 spans long. As he recited the left-hand incantations, he slowly drove the nails into the boy's flesh, just as Christ was nailed to the cross. Morong did the same to the boy's body, but with dark incantations. To express his anger towards his grandchild's killer, Morong also drove a nail into the boy's forehead. After fulfilling his task, he returned to his son's house to get 3 live chickens. He offered all of them to the demon from whom he drew his power. Before he finally confronted the person who had wronged him, he advised that person to call all their relatives if they wished to take revenge on him. Fueled by his anger, he wished to wipe out the entire family so that the intense rage and hatred in his heart would finally be gone. As he uttered those words, he could no longer hold back the surge of his emotions. Morong knew that his teachings were powerful. When fueled by his personal anger, he channeled all his wrath to the demon that lent him strength. For 2 hours of praying and performing the ritual, he cast a terrifying curse into the air, directed at that person. When he realized that it was taking effect, he immediately created a grave for the body of the child he had killed. He buried it deep in the ground so that even if it became a restless spirit, it would not reach the surface of the world. You know, Sir Zero, Morong held caused great revenge on the victims he targeted. If they didn't become wandering spirits, they would definitely become restless spirits. He had long known how strong the restless spirits were, so he was always cautious. If that creature rose from the ground, it would seek him out first to kill him. It was a terrifying consequence for someone who wielded such powerful witchcraft. After carrying out his plan, he returned to his son's house as if nothing had happened. The next day, while they were watching over his grandson's corpse, the village was once again shocked by the news of the child's disappearance. Of course, to avoid suspicion, he didn't pay much attention to it. 2 days later, they received news of the sudden death of the man who had harmed his grandson. Farmers found the body in a remote area due to a strange smell coming from that place. According to the witnesses, the man's body was blackened when they found it. Many leeches clung to the man's body, indicating that he did not die a natural death. Despite the rumors, no one could confirm what had happened. On the 7th day of the wake, Morong returned to his home. He sensed a heavy presence around, so to avoid involving anyone else, he chose to face the battle alone, knowing he was the only one capable of handling it. That night, while waiting outside, Morong saw 3 old women suddenly land in his yard. Seeing their fierce eyes, he quickly stood up, holding his hammer and 6 black nails. He discreetly tucked them into his waistband, and when he was ready, he confidently approached the creatures. Before they could speak, he firmly warned them that he had only returned what they had done to his family. He also warned the 3 old women that they had the choice to fight him. Hearing this, they couldn't help but laugh while staring at him. When silence fell around them, he heard one of the old women say, "You seem out of your mind, Morong. We know you. We know you're just a mere sorcerer. Before we came here, we already knew your abilities. So if anyone is going to surrender tonight, it will be you, not us." Upon hearing this, Morong quickly drew his hammer and threw a black nail. As he swung it, it flew like a bullet towards the creatures. Because of his actions, the creatures quickly transformed and charged at him. When he realized they were only a few feet away, he ran swiftly, dodging their sharp claws. As he avoided their attacks, he kept striking their skulls with his hammer. However, Morong couldn't easily harm them due to the toughness of their skin. When his hammer struck their bodies, he felt a strong barrier that repelled his attacks. Because of this ability of his opponents, Morong devised a plan to outsmart them. As their battle continued, Morong decided to use all the nails he had. Instead of throwing them at the creatures, he discreetly placed them at the far end of his yard to create a symbol that would allow him to summon the demon guiding him. While he was doing this, he couldn't deny the amount of damage he had already suffered from their attacks. According to his son's recollection, Morong had a deep wound on his chest, a large cut on his leg that slowed his movements, and the most alarming of all, his left hand was almost crushed. Despite these injuries, he remained strong. He never lost hope until he summoned the creature that served as his ace. As he drove the last nail into the ground, the surroundings were momentarily enveloped in silence due to the loud sounds of thunder. Lightning struck the center of his yard, revealing a large seal from which a demon emerged. Morong described the creature as having 4 wings and 9 eyes on its arms. It carried a spear, and half of its body was made of pure, fiery smoke. The creature also had 3 faces, representing Morong's primary emotions. The face on the right was his happy face, The one facing his enemies was filled with anger and rage, and the one on the left was his loving face for his children. Each face symbolized different powers, but the most powerful was the one filled with intense anger. That's the face he summoned because he wanted to make the family who killed his grandson pay for all the pain and suffering he had endured. The creatures stood and roared with all their might, causing a rumble beneath the ground. According to him, the rumble they felt at that time was not an earthquake, but the simultaneous fleeing of underground creatures living beneath his home. After the creature did this, it blew a black wind towards him, which quickly healed his wounds. When Morong felt his strength return, he slowly smirked, almost mocking the three creatures before him. He thought they would retreat, but unknown to him, they had no reason to be intimidated by his displayed power. As he continued to watch, he was surprised to see the three charge at his guide. This made Morong laugh heartily because he knew how powerful the creature he summoned was. When the demon saw what the three were doing, it raised its left hand in the air, causing its minions to rise from the seal. The three creatures were overpowered by the demon's minions until they fell to the ground. They struggled to break free, but with so many minions holding them, they had no chance. When Morong saw that the creatures were already bound, he approached them to administer the death penalty. He avoided speaking to them, believing there was nothing left to clarify. Moments later, facing the creatures, he mercilessly struck their heads with his hammer 5 times, which significantly weakened their tough skins. Noticing that the creatures were dead, he immediately ordered his guide to take their bodies to the dimension where it currently resided. Hearing his command, the demon nodded while slowly entering the seal. In the following days, Morong continued to fight these creatures until he had eradicated them. You know, Sir Zero, even though he had no idea about the origin of the events, he chose to side with his children. He didn't care if it was right or wrong. All he wanted was to protect them as long as he had strength. Over the years, the story gradually spread about those events. When they finally found peace and people forgot about it, he started telling his story to his son. At first, his son didn't believe it, but when Morong died, he passed on all his belongings to his youngest child. Do you know, Sir Zero? Even today, he still owns Morong's magical hammer and nails. What do you think about Morong's tale? Please comment below. I'll be happy to read it. That's all for now. Goodbye.